second. Okay, great. So again, you've made it to Cougar Career Academy, Experiential Recruiting through Micro-Internships. We're really excited to have our reps from Parker Dewey here today and Judy Hopkins from ASCC to kind of walk us through this program. A couple housekeeping items to get us started. You are muted, but you can unmute yourself. So if ever you're addressed directly or if you have a question, you can definitely unmute yourself and ask. You're welcome to ask at any time. It would be nice if we could have the chat function to kind of monitor those questions, or if you have a question and you'd like to kind of raise your hand, Judy and I will be on the lookout for those so that you can ask Jeffrey and Kristen. And this presentation is being recorded. A link to the recording will be emailed to you after the event has taken place, and you can also find the recording at this hyperlink here, alumlc.org/wsu/archive. And with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Judy. Thank you so much for joining us, Judy.
Yes, it is an absolute pleasure to be here with you today. We are delighted that you have chosen to join us in this particular episode of Cougar Career Academy. I am the internship coordinator at the Academic Success and Career Center, and I've had the pleasure of working with both Jeffrey and Kristen in the past year. I think Jeffrey and I had a chance to meet probably maybe even close to about a year ago, when we began to have a conversation about how we would like to have an opportunity to have a web page for Washington State University students and alumni, readily accessible for our students who were wanting to discover short internship projects that Parker Dewey actually does a brilliant job of providing. And then Kristen and I have also had a chance to meet and spend some time together learning and growing and connecting about their resources. So Jeffrey, it's such a pleasure to introduce you today. Jeffrey is the founder and CEO of the Parker Dewey company and organization, and we'll get to hear a lot more, I think, about who he is and perhaps some of the background that has informed his heart and decision to do the sort of work that he does. But I think Kristen is cut out of the same cloth, and she is actually the director of university engagement with Parker Dewey. So both of them are here with us today, and we're just so incredibly grateful that you have joined us and we have the opportunity to get to hear from you. So thanks so much for your willingness to be a part of this series, and we are looking forward to hearing more of what you have to share with us.
Thank you so much, Judy, and thanks for the super, super kind intro. I mean, it's just been such a pleasure working with you and getting to know you and the rest of the team over this past year. And again, you were way too kind with the intro. So as Judy said, I'm Jeffrey. I'm the founder of Parker Dewey. We started the organization about 5 years ago, really because we saw some challenges associated with college to career transition. We saw the challenges from a student's perspective, from an employer's perspective, and from a university's perspective. And while a number of folks and a number of attempts have been made to address those challenges, what we did was we pioneered this concept of the micro-internship. So, and again, we'll talk more about that. So first, let's jump into what the challenges are with traditional campus recruiting. So this all predates COVID. We did not have a crystal ball telling us this global pandemic was going to be hitting. In the same way, we didn't have a crystal ball to predict the social unrest and other challenges and issues that have sort of hindered all of us right now. We saw some core challenges really over the past several decades. And there's 4 in particular that come out. First of all, access. What we were finding is access was often limited for college students to get jobs. Access based upon where they go to school, academic pedigree, GPA, major, family connections. And while that hurts students, what we also found was it hurts employers. It hurts employers because they were missing out on candidates because they were only going to certain schools or only looking at certain GPAs or majors, and they were artificially filtering their pool of talent. They were also missing out because students had preconceived notions about their brands. They were deciding not to apply to a role because either they hadn't heard of the brand or they had certain assumptions of the brand based upon, again, the consumer facing side. So for an organization that's a startup or a B2B that may not be well known, students weren't even applying. But even for big companies like Pepsi, we were talking with the head of campus recruiting for Pepsi who highlighted the brand issue, and I was a little bit surprised because everyone's heard of Pepsi. She's like, yeah, they hear of us, but they think about us as a soda company. They don't necessarily think about us for marketing or strategy roles or technology roles. How do we engage them? So access is a real issue. The second one, and again, in no particular order, is assessment. That companies still rely on resume to predict who's going to be a good hire. They still look at GPA and assume that is a proxy for skill or fit or other things. The other thing we found is that even when companies try to use other tools, whether it's non-cognitive assessment, whether it's personality, whether it's AI or video, they just don't work. They don't work because it's really hard to tune the assessment to a specific role. They also don't work because there's such nuance in different roles at different times. So even if you take a relatively straightforward role with one of the big 4 accounting firms, sort of the entry-level auditor, or a standard role as a brand manager, or a standard role in any kind of a role, the nuance of that role is so specific to the company, to the team, to the time, that it's really hard to, again, tune that assessment in the way it's predictive. And even beyond that, getting buy-in from hiring managers is difficult. For the hiring manager, and this actually ties into the next issue around diversity, for the hiring manager that is used to recruiting only students from certain schools, majors, GPAs, backgrounds, how do you break down those burdens? How do you break down those barriers to ensure that every college student has equitable access to professional opportunities? And then finally, conversion. The conversion numbers are never what people want. We're all spending too much time and money traveling, visiting different campuses, hosting info sessions, only to find that we're not seeing the conversion that we'd expect. And then even from summer intern to full-time hire. Again, those numbers are not what companies want. How can you do a better job building and nurturing relationships to lead to higher conversion, and even make sure that you're filling the pipeline at the top of funnel in the right way? And again, all of this, as I alluded to, was taking place pre-COVID. And Kristen, I don't know if you want to talk about, you're on mute though.
Yeah, no, and then here we are, COVID hit. And so now it's like a whole nother world and then some for everybody. And it's been interesting how every single one of us have a COVID story, and in different ways that this is making life very different than what we thought 6 months ago we would be doing in the summer of 2020. For students, job offers, internships rescinded, limited opportunities to get any sort of experience professionally this summer. On-campus recruiting, you may not even realize it yet, but this fall it's going to look very different if you're a student on this on the call. Of course, it was already very different in the spring. So students are asking, so how can I connect with companies in a meaningful way? With only virtual events, how do I stand out? How do I make sure that I'm making that right decision when I really don't have that opportunity to interface with the company in any sort of way other than maybe a Zoom conversation or something like that? Well, here we are. That's the student side. On the company side, they too are dealing with canceled internship programs, no on-campus recruiting for spring and fall, budget cuts, just a lot of constraints. They're not even able to travel even if the school is having students on campus. But what is interesting is that they too are asking the exact same questions, just from their perspective. How can I connect with students in a meaningful way? If only virtual events, how can my company, I might be Pepsi. I used to recruit for Nestle back in the day. So how, everyone thought about us as the chocolate factory, and we worked with Oompa Loompas and things like that. No, it's a very, very different place to work for. So, how does that work from a recruiting standpoint? How can I stand out and share what it is that we can offer as an organization? And then, of course, how do I, as a hiring manager, make that right decision to choose those students? Because there are significant costs, as we're all aware, involved with hiring. And students, it may not something be top of mind for you, but costs is very, very critical. And so a lot of the same challenges that we're all facing right now with this pandemic that has fallen into our laps and disrupted literally everything. And so that leads us to, again, just thinking now, what is our collective competitive advantage? If you're a company, if you're a student, where do we all fit in on this? And that's where this idea of experiential recruiting, and specifically through micro-internships, allows these meaningful interactions between students, chance for you to really get a chance to have some paid experience, a chance to engage with real companies on real projects, things that I know I've got my to-do list scattered across the desk right now, that every hiring manager, every professional has a bunch of stuff that they just can't get done because there's only so many hours in the day. Students are eager to work on those projects and be able to advance and figure out what they want to do, if they like this organization or not, and so on. And then the company side, not only is work getting done, of course, but you're able to really strategically engage with students in a meaningful way. Forget the resume, forget the interview. That only tells you a very tiny fraction of a story, but it really allows you to see, does the student perform high quality work? Can the student work remotely? Because my company is probably not going to be going back to the office anytime soon. And by the way, the answer to that is probably yes, because everybody's working remotely anyway. And then how can I make sure that this student isn't going to leave me 6 months, a year from now when the economy improves? And so these are all key questions, and micro-internships are a way to really help address that. And so, to Jeffrey's brilliance in coming up with a concept, this is what it is, and how we define it. So short-term, paid, and professional, I think, are kind of the biggest take-homes on this. So short-term, the projects that if you're a student, these are the things you would have been doing if you were in an internship this past summer. These are the things that you'll be doing hopefully next summer if you're already going to be doing an internship, or if you're going to be starting a full-time job. But these are those short-term projects that you are going to be doing throughout your professional early on in your career. 10 to 40 hours generally is where they lie. And so some of them might be a bit shorter, some might be a bit longer, but they are all paid. That's something that fundamentally is key to our philosophy and our mission as an organization, is that we strongly don't think that folks should be doing work and not getting paid for it. I know when I first heard about Parker Dewey 4 years ago, when I was in a role much like Judy and many of you on the call with working in career services, the students I were working with, I mean, they were already juggling work and school and kids and family and mortgages and just a whole bunch of other real world stuff. They couldn't drop everything and go do something unpaid. That's just not reality. And it just doesn't feel very fair. And so in that sense, every single project on our platform is paid and paid fairly. And these are all professional tasks. So as much as I would love to have the help, Parker Dewey is not the place for me to find a babysitter. It's just not. It's not the place where you can find somebody to go paint your house, to do something that you can go onto other sites. There's other places to find that kind of assistance. This is the place where it's professional development for those early career launchers is in fact the term that we use throughout the site for folks who are just getting started. Internship, full-time opportunity kinds of projects for those of you who are pursuing your undergrad degree or even your graduate degree.
And this is, and just to jump in here, I mean, as Kristen said, this aspect is really vital. This is not about gigs replacing jobs. This is not about driving an Uber as a career. Where we've seen the most value, both from the student and the employer perspective, is really this concept of the gig as a pathway. This opportunity to use these professional assignments. Yeah, you generate income as a student. Yeah, you get work done as a busy professional. But more importantly, it becomes this way to get to know one another and to actually start to build an authentic relationship And because of the low stakes nature, because as Kristen said, the average project is relatively short term, 10 to 40 hours, do a few days to a few weeks out, what we found is you can actually change behavior by encouraging exploration on both sides. For the student who thinks he or she wants to work at the Silicon Valley startup, this provides a way for them to learn about opportunities with bigger companies. Or for the student who never thought about working for a consumer packaged goods company, this is a way to, again, explore those opportunities. In the same way, for companies that are used to only hiring students with over a 3.5 GPA, this provides a great opportunity for them to explore as well, to explore the student athlete that might have a slightly lower GPA, but meanwhile has all of those core skills that are so vital for success, the problem solving, communication, time management, etc. So again, sorry to interrupt, Kristen. I just really wanted to highlight that point, that this is not gigs as an endpoint or gigs as a replacement for a job, but really using these project-based experiences as a pathway.
Absolutely. And the other cool thing is that this is not a new concept for us. This is not something that that was a reactionary experience. Judy, as you said at the top, we've been working with us for over a year now. And so these are opportunities that even pre-COVID, they were there. And now it's been really, really interesting. And I hate that this is the reason, but it has been interesting just to see how, as companies are trying to identify how do we connect with students in a meaningful way, they've dug into this idea of what is a micro-internship. And, you know, this is actually a really interesting and helpful way that can augment our current talent acquisition strategies. Virtual career fairs, virtual internship, and things like that, those are maybe only going to get you so far. But if you really want to get to know a student in a much far more meaningful way and really be able to gauge a student's high quality of work, this is another arrow to add to the quiver that is proven to be very successful for those companies who have gone this route. The other big thing too is the flexibility, in that if you're a student and you are taking a ton of classes right now and your plate is full, no worries. This is not the time probably to take on something more, but maybe you can carve out 10, 20 hours over the course of a 2-week period to fit this into your schedule. Certainly a full-scale internship wouldn't be something that you could do right now, but it might be something that you could take on a micro-internship, in amongst everything else you're doing. And then companies, if you had an internship program that was canceled, or you have individuals, your colleagues that are just constantly saying, I have got too many things on my plate, this is an opportunity for you to augment your current workforce, engage some students, and be able to get some meaningful work done, as well as, to Jeffrey's comment around just really starting to see, is this student going to be somebody that we would want to bring on to your organization? So that being said, our network of students and organizations and so on, very, very big and growing literally every single day. So over 400 different colleges, universities, nonprofit organizations that have all found us through word of mouth. We're just looking for innovative ways to help their students connect with professional development opportunities. And so Judy and your team, just with the team at Washington State, we're really, really proud to have you as one of those schools and to be here today. So thank you again for this opportunity. And we're also really proud of the fact that the students that we serve come from such an eclectic mix, a true cross-section of our college student population at large here in the United States. I love the statistic that we share in the middle, that over 80% of career launchers, so students and recent graduates who have pursued these opportunities, come from underrepresented backgrounds. So folks who may have been overlooked for reasons that are just outside of their control, maybe because they just didn't have the knowledge about how college recruiting works. They didn't know that, it really kind of starts as soon as you get on campus in the fall. Maybe they were already juggling too full of a class load, but they couldn't fit in some of these other professional development experiences. Maybe they're a student athlete. I know there's a lot of athletics career services folks on the call. And so we got a number of college student athletes that just don't have time to do a summer internship. That might be when they're actively training for their sport. And so for all these different reasons, it's been a really great way for those students to still have some meaningful professional development amongst everything else that they have going on. And then the other big element of our platform is that it is open to all students. So happy to welcome any student attending a US-based college or university, community college to Research One University, everything in between. So we have such a nice mix of students that are working and engaging in these different opportunities literally every single day.
And again, to Kristen's point, I'm so proud of that 80% number. Those aren't just students on the platform, but it's 80% of the students who are selected come from underrepresented populations. We're seeing companies behaving in the quote unquote right way. They're not getting impressed by a certain GPA. They're not making their decision based upon academic pedigree. They're using this to explore. And we are, again, very, very transparent. We are a mission-driven organization, mission first, 100% full stop. But we try to build the platform in a way that this mission is sustainable because it creates real value for the employers, that it gives them early access to talent. It lets them build and nurture relationships with college students who are early in their academic career, who are still exploring, who are still learning about different roles. It helps them build their brand on campus. Again, to my earlier comment, whether you're a household name like PepsiCo or a B2B that college students may never have heard of, or an emerging startup, you can build your brand on campus with students in this very authentic, effective way. One of the things we've also heard a lot about right now is because of the current pandemic, campus recruiting budgets have been cut. Now, geography's off the table, so a lot of the expense has gone away. The cost of flights, the cost of hotel rooms, the cost of hosting on-site or in-person events. But what we found, again, even pre-COVID, was that for employers, they could lower their acquisition cost or cost per hire by anywhere from 40 to 80%. That's pretty meaningful, and do so in a way that they're improving diversity, improving access, driving better hiring numbers, and really leading to better outcomes. In fact, our data shows that over 98% of the students selected for micro-internships, who have worked on micro-internships, over 98% of them remain at the same company at least a year. That's pretty impressive given the 55% attrition rate we see of recent college grads who leave their first job in the first year. So not only are they getting jobs, but they're getting the right jobs. And not only are companies making the hires, but they're making the right hires. The right hires meaning it's the right fit. The right hires meaning it's the right, or improving diversity. The right hires meaning they stick around. So how does this all work? Basically, the platform from an employer perspective is built to handle the full cycle. It's built to attract candidates, really giving them access to students across the country, and more importantly, deeper access within schools. And what I mean by that is even for companies that already recruit at Washington State, all the companies are coming and probably recruiting the same students. The students with certain majors, the students with certain GPAs. We heard from one of our other university partners that we have hundreds of employers or thousands of employers coming to campus, but they're all looking at the same 20 or 30% of students. How can we ensure that companies have access to the full talent pool of incredible career launchers that are at WSU, irrespective of major or GPA? And that's one of the things, again, these micro-internships do. That they create this win-win, actually win-win-win for the students, schools, and companies because it increases the access. The second thing is the engagement. Again, how do you engage students beyond inviting them to an info session or a career fair? How do you actually engage them to build a real relationship? Well, pre-COVID, we were seeing how micro-internships do it. And obviously in the COVID environment where on-site events are now off the table, what we found is these projects provide a way to do it. So we talk with literally thousands of companies every month, and everyone, when we talk about their plans for this fall, talks about going to the virtual career fair. And they say, yeah, but we're concerned we're not going to stand out, so we're going to host all of these online events for students. But the reality is they all sound the same. And they're great if the student is already aware of your brand or already wants to show up. But how are you going to compete and actually engage the student and sort of build that relationship in a differentiated way? what we found is giving students opportunities to work on real paid professional projects for your organization is the best way to engage them. It's also the best way to assess this fit, to see their skills firsthand. Again, I know I've interviewed thousands of students over the years who look great on paper, but in the interview you realize their skills were lacking, whether it's communication, problem solving, you name it. Or even scarier, the student who interviews really well, but when you hire him or her, the fit's just not there. Whether it's because they lack the skills and we're just a really good interviewer, or whether they realize our organization was not the right fit for them. What we found is these projects become a great top of funnel opportunity to mutually assess fit, to assess those skills that also aren't captured in the resume, but they're so vital to success, and then ultimately drive better conversion. Again, through this relationship building, what we found is that more of the students, as I alluded to before, wind up being those who accept the summer internships and then ultimately accept the full-time roles and do so eyes wide open. In addition, it provides this great way to engage candidates year-round. It's no longer just about recruiting season in the fall or spring. It's a great way to build relationships with candidates right now. As summer interns are leaving, especially for programs who have shortened their summer internship program, now is a great opportunity to engage college students. Because do you know what? As Kristen mentioned before, there are hiring managers that have these project needs right now. They should be giving them to college students because from their perspective, it's a great way to get that support. But from your perspective as a university recruiter, it's a great way to start to build your pipeline and get early access and engage the students. So when we designed the micro-internship program, we tried to make it really, really simple for students, for companies, and for the universities. So first for the students, first for the companies, again, really simple. HR or other decision makers at the organization can post their projects, whether it's the individual manager who needs help on content creation or market research or data cleansing or data analysis or IT work, you name it. They can post their project. At that point, students apply. The WSU students apply. They see the project. For the student who may not have been considering a role in financial services, they may see a really interesting project for a financial services company and say, do you know what? I have some free time. This looks interesting. Or for the student who's dying to get in at Microsoft, they may see a project for Microsoft and see this as the foot in the door. Or for some students, they might say, do you know what? This isn't the right fit. And that's okay as well. What we're doing is we're giving the students the chance to self-select in. What happens for the employers is they then see the students who apply and make their selection. And they're not making it based upon the student profile. They're making it typically based upon answers to short questions. Why would we pick you? How would you approach this project? Why are you interested in it? And what we found is those short answer questions become a really great, call it, door into the individual. Because for the individual who writes, you should pick me because I go to fancy school and I have a 3.9 and have some free time, that student doesn't get picked. But for the student who says, I wasn't really thinking about financial services, but this role is really, really interesting and here's why I'm excited to do it, and outlines really thoughtful answer, that student gets picked. Again, it's a great way for employers to get to know students beyond the typical pool of candidate. And again, behind the scenes, we're managing it all. So for employers, there's no administrative burden. There's no 1099 or W-2 or payment processing. We've made it as easy as possible so the students are actually employees or contractors of Parker Dewey for the duration of the project. Now you select the student, you can engage with them as much or as little as you want, but they're on our books. And by the way, there's never any conversion fee. So if you get to know the student and it's someone who you want to put into your recruiting pipeline and ultimately hire, great. Goes back to the mission of the organization. We're not a staffing firm. So what are the benefits to students? I mean, Kristen, you should talk about this.
Yeah. So again, that spirit of a win-win-win for everybody. This is really a lot of things for students, allowing you to explore careers. So not only do companies have a chance to really get to identify talent early, you have a chance as a student to identify, did I pick the right major? Is this truly something that I want to be doing? And if you decide, yeah, I think I might want to go financial services, this is a chance for you to take on a project, prove yourself a little bit. And you might decide, wow, yes, this is exactly what I ultimately want to do. And if so, fantastic. You may also decide, this is not at all what I thought I was going to be. This is not going to be a good fit for me. Think of all the time you've just saved yourself. Sometimes that's even more valuable than finding that you found a great fit. But regardless, you've had a chance to get some experience, to build your network, to put some things on your resume, experience that you can then take to another opportunity and another interview and another resume bullet point, etc., to take to another organization to then say, yes, I did this project. This was a deliverable. These were the challenges that I had to overcome. And this is what I did. This was my approach to it. And companies, even if you've decided you do not want to do that at all, no problem. You can still translate what your learning outcomes were, what skills you acquired, the grit, the perseverance, all of those soft skills that will resonate with a future hiring manager. Much more so than if you just simply said, yeah, I did some sort of part-time job that I really didn't really like, and other experiences that just, again, may not have provided you that professional interaction and a chance to really explore.
And I'm gonna jump in for a second here real quick. And one of the college students had this great description of it. Gosh, it was probably about a year ago, where he described it as job dating, where the full-time role is like getting married and the summer internship is like getting engaged, where again, as a college student, you have 1, maybe 2 summers to go through that engagement. But in both of those cases, they're high stakes. And we're asking students and employers, for that matter, to jump into those very much sight unseen. What he said was, I want the opportunity to job date. I want the opportunity to actually engage with companies and get to know them through discrete experiences, like a date, where I can do a single experience. And if it's not a fit, that's okay. At least I learned something. At least I got a story. At least I had hopefully a reasonable time and learned something wasn't the fit for me. And that's okay. But because it's only a date, maybe I'm more willing to explore an industry or a role or a department I wasn't otherwise thinking about. And by the way, maybe the company is more willing to take a chance on me because I'm not the exact profile that they expected. And I pushed back a little bit and I said, but isn't that what info sessions are about? Isn't that what the company's websites are for, career fairs? He said, that's not dating. He said, that's like being on one of those dating sites where you're swiping right or left or whatever, where everyone's putting their best face forward. But at the end of the day, like, that's not giving you the actual experience of a date. And I thought it was a great metaphor, and it really ties into what Kristen said, because this isn't meant to, as I said, replace the summer internship or replace the full-time job. It's meant to really serve as that pipeline, that low-risk way to get more engagement than you would from an interview or info session, but not have the same level of commitment as the summer internship or full-time role. Sorry to interrupt, Kristen.
No, not at all. Well, and then I'll throw an extra layer on it in that we're having this conversation in the midst of a global pandemic. And so already you've kind of lost out on a summer, at least thousands upon thousands of students have. And so maybe you are going to graduate in the coming year. And so you've got to figure out now, how do I sell what I've done the past year and a half or so to a prospective employer for that first full-time role? Or maybe you were planning on interning this past summer, or maybe you were planning on studying abroad or whatever, and you couldn't do any of those things. So your number of summers is very limited now. You just lost one of the 3 that you had to begin with. And so that too just raises the stakes even more for whatever time that you now have left in your bachelor's degree. And so we don't need more things to stress about, but a micro-internship, again, can just help you to identify and just really see, yep, this is going to be a good fit. These are some valuable experiences that I can, take forward, and move on from. And so again, sharing that perspective, both from a student standpoint, but too from a company standpoint, this is really your time and your talent pipeline has taken a hit, with this as well, with everything going on. So from a student's perspective, again, we try to make it very, very easy. We're an open platform. It's completely up to you how much or little information you want to include in your profile. Of course, we recommend that if you can fill it out as completely as possible, all the better, because that is all public information that the company whose project that you apply to would be able to see. So just know, though, creating an account, you can go to the WSU landing page, which is linked on the slide. And Judy, happy to send these slides to you afterwards, and you can certainly circulate it with anyone who is joining us today. And create your account. If you need some tips on how to create a strong profile, we do have a number of resources on the Career Launcher section of our website so that you can see some success tips. There's videos and so on from previous students who have pursued these opportunities, as well as just videos that we've prepared on our end as well, just to help you stand out. And then from there, it's up to you to apply to interesting projects. Couple of tips for success, though, for students who are on the call and joining us today. First of all, when you apply, don't just copy and paste the exact same response to every single project that you see on the platform that's remotely of interest to you. Yes, that's faster, completely understand. But companies will understand that that was not customized to them as well. And quite frankly, this is a time where you really want to put your best foot forward. As I like to tell the number of the schools that I speak with every day, and even some of the students, micro-internships in the tiny little corner of the world that we have here is just a microcosm of what's going on in the larger global economy. And so I just fielded a question from a school just a little bit ago, asking about job opportunities in hospitality management. There's not a lot going on there right now, because that industry right now is very, 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 very small because no one's traveling or going anywhere. So again, just kind of think through. There's a lot of students that are hungry for experience right now. And so it's really important for you to put forth that extra effort and to customize your responses. When they ask you a question about why are you interested in this particular project, don't just say, oh, it sounds interesting. Cite some specific examples from your background that shows that you'd be a good fit for this project. Add some insightful comments around your experience in that area, or at least your level of interest, and so on. Upload examples of your skills. Upload examples of your work, so that if it's a project that involves you doing some writing, for maybe you're helping somebody with a blog article, maybe you're doing some research, upload samples of your work from previous internships or classes or otherwise that really show your abilities in those areas to draft constructive comments and insightful arguments and put together insightful papers and so on, because that's what the company is going to have you do. So you really need to have some work samples to back that up. Similarly, if you are going to be uploading in content, have a copy of your resume up there as well. It hopefully goes without saying, but you really want to make sure that that's up to date and that, again, you're telling the employer much more about you than what they would be able to see in just a quick little profile. The profile itself, real quick to create on our platform, just simply asks for your professional experience and for your just general experience. So if you're a student athlete, you can put that in there. Extracurricular organizations you're involved in, of course, other part-time jobs and internships and other things like that you've done, you can include that in your experience section. Education, of course, that you go to Washington State, definitely include that. Your major, your GPA, all of those important educational criteria. But from there, the first thing that a company will see when they're looking at you versus somebody else is what you say in answer to their short answer questions. That's the job application. That's the interview for the most part. So really take the time to construct those comments very, very carefully and strategically. Now, if you're selected for an opportunity, the way that works is you receive an email from Parker Dewey, because one of the big advantages from the company side, but also from your perspective, is that in terms of administration and behind the scenes, all the paperwork and all that, that's all done through Parker Dewey. So we take that on for the companies to make it easier for them. But it also makes it easier for you because you don't have to worry about bidding for a specific contract or anything like that. You don't have to worry about who owns the work or we all draft it all out in there. You don't have to worry about, oh, I'm not hearing from the company. What's going on? You'll have a contact within our organization that we can reach out to you as well. And when the project is done, you don't have to worry about who your paycheck is coming from as well, because that also comes from us and we take care of that, which again simplifies things for companies, but also makes it easier for you. And then finally, when your project is done, not only, as I mentioned, do we pay you, but also this is your opportunity, because along the way, when you're selected for a project, you'll have a point of contact at that organization that you're doing the project for. Stay in touch with them. you never know. And frequently we see these projects turn into longer term experiences, whether they be maybe additional micro-internships, maybe they're more in longer term internship, maybe they're full-time job opportunities. We can and do see these frequently, and actually have a slide that gives you some examples of that in just a few moments. So again, hopefully that's helpful for those of you who are students, and we'll leave some time at the end too for either students, companies, or even other career services folks that are on the call. If you have specific questions, we also have our contact information too at the end. So if you have questions about things that we're just quickly going over, happy to elaborate on any of these points.
And as a student, I'll let you in on a little secret since you took the time to join us. Things like the student profile, as Kristen said, it might seem annoying that we're asking you to enter in your school, since we sort of know where you go to school. It might seem annoying to enter in your major or your prior work experience if we're asking you to upload your resume. To let you in on the secret, we do that very intentionally. And it's not because we want to be annoying or difficult, but we're using it as a way for students to really stand out and to level the playing field. That the student who doesn't take it seriously, who doesn't fill out their profile, who fills out their profile and it's riddled with typos, those are signals to prospective employers. Because again, when you talk with the employers, what they're saying is not, we need more students who know how to use Excel, or we need more students who know how to use PowerPoint. What they're saying is we want students that have strong communication skills and attention to detail and grit, those core skills or power skills that make the difference between a great colleague and someone that is just painful to work with. And what we're trying to do is level the playing field to let those skills stand out. So again, it's not done to be difficult. It's done actually to level the playing field, which is why it's so important. It's also, by the way, one of the reasons that while we love partnering with schools and love when they encourage students to participate in this, we actually, one of the rules for the platform is we don't allow colleges to require it. It cannot be a requirement for graduation. Because again, we want students who want to be there, who see the value in this type of career exploration and access. So sorry to go off topic for a second, but I like being transparent. And again, since the students took the time to be on the call, wanted to make sure that you got sort of all of the secret tips. From the employer's perspective, why does this work? So again, this isn't, as Kristen said, a newfangled thing that we just came up with in response to COVID. This isn't a jury-rigged sort of platform. This is something we've seen for 5 years. And it's a term, the experiential recruiting is a term that we've coined because it drives better outcomes. And the reason it works very much in the same way that this creates value for universities, employers, and students, the reason this works is it also creates value at a more tactical level for all of the stakeholders. And what I mean by that is first the hiring managers, the individuals at companies who are providing these micro-internship opportunities to the students. They value it because they appreciate the immediate support. As Kristen said, we all have these we should and I shouldn't projects on our plate that are important, they're valuable, but are they the best use of time for someone with 5, 10, 20 years of professional experience? No. But if they can get support from a highly motivated college student on that project, they're going to be so happy and so appreciative. It's also a way to give back. I know there's a couple of Washington alums on the line. Go Cougs, as it says in the chat. This is a great way to give back. That if you're an alum, you can provide these micro-internship opportunities to current Washington students. It's a great way to support them, and because the average project is $300 or $400, it's a way to do it even within your own department's budget. It's a great way to give back and support them while also getting the support for the work that you need done, while also creating this great pipeline for these candidates into your organization and building that relationship further. The second reason it works is the university recruiters value the outcomes. As we talked about before, it drives better conversion, better diversity, better cost effectiveness, and ultimately better hiring. And what's great is it does so in a way that doesn't create friction in their organization. It's not expensive for them to do it. They don't need to replace processes that they already like. We're not suggesting they get rid of the job interview. We're not suggesting that a student does one micro-internship for your company and you decide to hire them. Although we have seen that happen, that's not what we're suggesting. What we're suggesting is this is the best way to, at the top of the recruiting funnel, build those relationships and do sort of that first pass, not based upon flipping through a resume book or doing a phone screen interview, but actually seeing the work product and getting feedback from the hiring managers on the work product and engaging the hiring managers earlier in the process in a very constructive way. And what it does is it makes sure that by the time the students are engaged in the more traditional process, there's already a mutual sort of understanding of fit. It eliminates that risk of a bad interview. It eliminates that risk of a bad hire or finding out at the 11th hour that the fit's not right. And then finally, for the students, they value the experience. And again, we just completed a pretty comprehensive survey of, I think it's, if not hundreds of thousands, certainly tens of thousands of college students. And what we heard from them was that, yeah, they like getting paid and they appreciate the income, but that is by far the least important thing to them. What they really care about is the experience. They care about the opportunity to prove themselves, the opportunity to get in the door, to demonstrate skills, to build their network. And it's pretty incredible because they're doing so in a way that helps the companies, whether it's the individual hiring manager who has the work that needs to get done, or whether it's the university recruiter who's trying to find ways to engage the right students. The other thing we found from the students from the survey, just to give a little bit of a preview, we'll be releasing the full results, I think, next week, is that students are really thinking about campus recruiting for next year. For those students who are going back, who are going to be juniors and seniors in particular, they are nervous. They are trying to learn more about companies. They're nervous that they're not going to have the same opportunities if companies aren't on site. This provides the solution. This provides the way to engage the students in a way that helps companies stand out and differentiate during this, call it, crazy time. What I'm most proud about is the next slide, though, the real sustainable impact. As I said before, we are a mission-driven organization, mission first. And what I'm really proud of is that we show this drives sustainable impact, sustainable outcomes, support for improved hiring, improved diversity, improved retention in a way that doesn't require philanthropic dollars. It doesn't require charity. And in fact, one of the clients even made a comment, it's not in these quotes, but one of the comments, the clients made a comment that it felt good to give back, but it didn't feel like charity because I was getting help on the project. And I was finding someone who I was going to hire, who I wouldn't have otherwise found. And that's why the impact is sustainable. We're seeing companies like Microsoft up in your neck of the woods creating new roles for first-generation college students, roles that didn't exist. We're seeing organizations like M. Holland, a company I'd be surprised if anyone on the call had heard of. It's a massive industrial company in the plastic space. They identified an international STEM student for a full-time role, a student who wasn't even thinking about M. Holland and had never heard of it. JLL, the massive real estate company, brought in a college student who had graduated, who was working as a barista or something, and was underemployed. Again, nothing against baristas, but is that the highest and best use of time for a recent college graduate? No. But this individual was getting filtered out because of where she went to school and her GPA. We're seeing organizations like JLL getting to know those students and bringing them in. Again, not as charity, even though it supports the community support efforts in the mission, but they're doing it because they recognize her skills and her potential. And then again, companies like Pepsi, who are creating pathways for students who are unable to participate in internships, whether it was because they had other obligations or student athletes or geographically it didn't work. They were creating these pathways, which is why, again, the impact is real and sustainable. Again, there's plenty of press out there on all of these different topics. We included some links in the presentation for folks to access, whether you're an alum who's looking to give back, like some of the folks on the call, whether you're a career services department looking to create more of these opportunities for students, or looking to create new ways to engage employers, whether they're the ones who already recruit on campus or those who don't, or whether you're a student looking for ways to create great experiences for yourself and conduct that career exploration and ultimately land the right job. And again, we'll share this afterwards. And with that, again, we're happy to open up the conversation for questions if people have any. But look, Kristen and I both do this because, and hopefully it comes across, we're passionate about it. And that's true of everyone on our team. Everyone on our team believes in the opportunity to improve college to career transitions. We fundamentally believe in the mission. We all have our own stories as to why it's personal for us, whether it's our own experiences or experiences we've seen sort of facing others, or challenges we've had on the hiring side, or challenges and flaws. Like, we all have a reason we're trying to solve this problem and we're passionate about it. So let us know how we can help. The other thing I'll share is almost every one of the ideas that you saw presented today and every one of the insights hasn't come from me. It came from our partners. It came from universities asking the question, how can we get our alumni engaged? We know our alumni want to support students, but they don't necessarily have the wherewithal to write a six-figure check, and they don't make hiring decisions for their companies. How can we engage them? How can we engage employers who are visiting our campus but all recruiting the same 30% of the students, or engage employers who are no longer coming to campus? How can we provide these opportunities for student athletes where they couldn't do a summer internship? All of these ideas, all of these best practices weren't based upon us guessing, but were based upon feedback and insights from the folks like you on the call. So please, please, please let us know how we can be of help. If you have other ideas, questions, whatever, we have our direct contact information on here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeffrey and Kristen. I think that was a really informative and motivating presentation, and I think it'll be really useful for those on the call. If you have any questions you'd like to ask right now, you can either unmute yourself and go ahead and ask, or you can type your question in the chat and we can pose it to Jeffrey and Kristen that way. I'll start off with a question here. So is it okay for alumni who have already graduated to take advantage of this program and to apply for micro-internships?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
You're welcome. Anyone who self-identifies as a career launcher. So you're X number of years out, deliberately vague, so that you can self-identify that this will be a helpful experience for you.
Yeah, for someone who's 1, 2, 3 years out of college, be it undergrad or grad, without a doubt. And we see a lot of that as students are thinking about, or recent graduates are saying, I'm not sure if I'm in the right job. I'm trying to determine if it's the right fit, but before I quit, I want to understand. Or for the students who are unemployed or misemployed, where we're also very transparent is for someone with 10, 20 years of professional experience, our platform just ain't the right place. Again, you're more than welcome to sign up, but you're just not going to find the projects all that interesting, either intellectually or financially. Again, if you want to sign up, feel free, but we just want to manage expectations.
Definitely. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. What would you say is, I know the projects and companies range, you know, there's a wide range of topics and industries, but would you say there's like a typical project that you see a lot of, or yeah, just something that's that is used frequently in this platform?
I wish there was. It would make our lives easier if we said, oh, it's great in this industry or this role or this department. I mean, we've seen them ranging from one-person startups to Fortune 100s. We've seen them across every department: marketing, sales, finance, IT, HR, accounting, you name it, and then across industry. The way we think about the projects, and I know we keep on going back to this, are those we shoulds and I shouldn'ts, those things you have on your plate. The other way, at least I think about it, is those discrete projects with defined beginnings, defined ends that are quote unquote low stakes. So if it is a project that you're betting the company on, where they're going into your core code, like, ain't the right micro internship. Again, very, very transparent. If it's a project where, again, it's important, it's valuable, but if it doesn't come back perfectly, okay, maybe it'll take me an hour to clean it up, and I was hoping it would be ready to go, but it still saved me 10 hours. That's a great example of a project. Now, that said, over 98% of the micro-internships are completed successfully with the students exceeding expectations, but we just want to set expectations of companies. We just want to make sure, again, these aren't 20-year industry veterans. These are college students. And again, what they bring to the table is creativity. They bring a different perspective. They bring sort of this clean slate, if you will, which is, I think, one of the things the companies really, really appreciate.
Absolutely.
But don't bet your company on a micro-internship, just to be very, very clear.
Fair enough. Okay, awesome. Well, I don't see any other questions coming through. Judy, do you want to either talk about or post in the chat the best way maybe for employers and internship seekers to access this info through the ASCC?
Yes. I've got a link right here from our actually our ASCC webpage that I'll post in the chat to everyone. And it's an incredible resource that we've actually had a number of students take advantage of. What we found that we've had to troubleshoot, and I'm just being like sort of completely honest about this, is that we've had a number of students who've perused the micro-internships, Parker Dewey website. They've, taken a look, but we've really had to sort of do some coaching with students along the same lines that Jeffrey and Kristen have talked about to be quite thoughtful in completing their application or profile process. To like Kristen said, not cut and paste, but to really be individually considering each of the opportunities that are there. So we really want to encourage not only employers to engage who are alums, who are looking for an opportunity to say, how can I serve these students who are really kind of currently at risk, right? Who are perhaps struggling with, pivoting and selecting opportunities, or maybe, as was mentioned, a summer internship was canceled. Well, the opportunities that Jeffrey and Kristen have discussed are very real, practical experiences that we support wholeheartedly and are really wanting to encourage both our employers and alumni to create opportunities for our students, but our students to engage as well. So we hope that this experience has definitely created greater insight for all of you. And again, we're so incredibly grateful to Jeffrey and Kristen for your expertise and insight today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity, and all of the expertise is Kristen's. I'm simply along for the ride.
Wow, too modest. No, way too modest. But no, we just really appreciate all of you and your interests. For those of you who are students, to hang in there. We'll get through this, all of us. And other big tip that I would recommend too is if you don't see something that's of interest, check back tomorrow, the next day. This is definitely something. New opportunities are posted every single time. If you're an employer and you don't have a project top of mind right now, you can post it and get it kicked off usually right away as soon as you want to, to have it get going. So it really becomes when you need some help, this is just one option to hopefully, directly benefit WSU students. And those of you who are companies directly benefit you as well. So we just appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you. And I'll be sure to email out these links and contact information for Jeffrey and Kristen in case you have other questions. So thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Have a great day.
Take care.
Bye.